All right, kamusta mga kameta? Ito, we have our latest podcast just after another fantastic podcast discussion with an expert on Spain and someone who's also very invested in the Philippines and Spanish-Philippine relations, hopefully more and more. To top that, no, balikan natin isang kasama natin, very good friend of ours who was extremely kind and generous during dun sa pagbisita natin sa Madrid. Thank you very much, Manolet Paterno, for joining us. Should I call you Architect Paterno, Philippine style? Lagay mo na para natin ng some sort of a title honorifics. Kamusta, Manolet? Buenos dias.
Good and good, amigo. Just call me Manolet. Good evening, mga kameta. I'm Manolet Paterno, ang kaibigan ni Richard dito sa Madrid, Spain. And nagagalak ako na may kabahagi ng live vlog. Isa rin akong kikisubaybay ng mga vlogs ni Richard. So nice to meet all of you, and I hope to be able to share something about my experience here in Spain.
Yes, fantastic. So speaking of that, Manolet, of course, we had some conversations about your background, etc., as we do with all our guests, especially special guests, and of course, also good friend of ours. Can you tell us a little bit about your background? How did you end up in Spain? Like, can you give us a brief, I don't know, public relations friendly version of your background, whatever you're comfortable about?
Well, honestly, Richard, I never thought of living abroad abroad. But honestly, sometime in 2017, I was quite affected by something that happened in the news, the killing of Kian de los Santos, and I realized, watching the coverage and seeing the reenactment of this kid begging his assailants, wag po, may exam pa po ako bukas. That really struck me, and I felt, wow, how dysfunctional things are in our country. And I made the decision, I think I need to take a breather and go to Spain, go abroad, and I decided to come here and live here for a while.
Places, because usually the Filipinos, they go, especially yung mga medyo may kaya sa buhay, they go usually to California, to US, right? I mean, US tends to be the usual fallback option for a lot of Filipinos, or even closer, New Zealand or Australia. Why Spain? Why Madrid? I mean, do you have, kind of a background? I understand you spoke Spanish back in the day before even, stumbling upon your latest journey in Europe. Can you tell us a little bit? Let's move a little bit more backward. I mean, like, I understand you went to university, right? Can you talk about that a little bit more backward, right? Yeah. Before your fateful decision to have a bit of a break and perhaps explore options there in Europe.
Well, Spain always seemed the logical choice, for me. We have a little Spanish background. My mother and father were both students here in Spain in the 1950s. My dad was getting his doctorate in law. My mom was just out of high school, and they met here. They fell in love, and my sister also studied here in Spain, and it made perfect sense for me. I also was studying some Spanish in Manila,
right?
And also the knowledge that it's very easy for Filipinos to get citizenship here. Just after living here for 2 years, legally you can apply for citizenship. So it's very logical.
Oh wow, even fast. I think Australia is like 3 years or something, and they were saying how amazing that is. Wow, ganon kabilis. And your family is Spanish speaking?
Yes. My parents, some of my siblings, or my grandparents, my uncles, my aunts, on both sides, yes, we're a Spanish-speaking family.
Right. We'll talk more about your background. Of course, you're Manolet Paterno. You guys go a long way as far as Spain and Philippines is concerned, and you're, of course, part of the, let's say, small slice of the Philippine, I don't want to use the word elite, or Philippine population that is Spanish speaking, right? What's the term again for Spanish speaking Filipinos?
Hispanohablantes.
Ano?
Hispanohablantes, or Spanish speakers.
Hispanohablantes, all right. Exactly. It's like francophone, right? Hispanohablantes. I just actually stumbled upon that terminology recently. I think it was when current Undersecretary De Vega, right? I think he was ambassador in Mexico, and he was discussing how there's just very few Hispanohablantes in the Philippines and all. So I think that was like the first time it came across the words, and like, Oh, I know. Like we use the word francophone or anglophone, but what about if we're Spanish speaking, right? So yeah, Hispanohablantes. Um, how did it feel to be Spanish speaking Filipinos in a country that has completely forgotten to speak the language? I mean, it's like, like I talked to some other Hispanohablantes in the Philippines. I'm not gonna say who, but these are people who are really deeply, part of the Philippine Spanish history. They speak Spanish very comfortably. In fact, I have friends who are Filipinos, but Spanish is almost their first language, right? How does it feel na parang kayo lang marunong mag-Spanish and then most Filipinos are not, or including other elite Filipinos or middle class Filipinos who are not that familiar with Spanish? What is the sense? I don't know if anyone has asked you a question, but I'm honestly curious about that. How does it feel? Does it feel you're like a Illuminati? It feels like you're special elite people. I mean, what's going on there?
That's an interesting question because no one has
Yeah,
ever asked me that.
yeah. I never
And
ask anyone to. Yeah, yeah, please that because I feel comfortable with you. You're a
that's
good
the
friend.
best questions.
Tell me about it. Yeah.
No, never felt special, never felt entitled, never felt
Right.
any different. It's just a given. It's just a given. Yeah. If I encounter someone else who speaks Spanish, then I'll speak Spanish. Otherwise, I don't. Uh, Nothing different actually.
Of course, nothing different. It's just very peaceful. But
Oh,
there's a distinct Filipino accent, diba? Of in our Espanol. I mean, I was just listening to some folks, including dun sa tribuna natin, like see Ambassador De Vega, for instance, right? He speaks Spanish in a very distinct way. I don't hear Mexicanos speaking like that or Catalans, definitely not Castillans, right? It's a distinct Filipino accent, right? And my understanding is that it's considered a bit sweet, almost like Peruvian sweet Spanish. Can you tell us about that? Or if you also share that point of view, right?
yeah, yes, I agree. I agree. You know, the Spanish spoken in the Philippines it's unique. It
Yeah.
sounds different. Tone is different. But also we have to remember that Spanish in the Philippines is a dead language. So many of our words, many of our expressions are archaic.
Ah,
So sometimes here, here in Spain, I tend to use words that I hear my grandmother using or sometimes my mom using. And here they look at me, okay? They don't
yeah.
understand because these were words that aren't used anymore, but were common being used in the Philippines in the 1800s, But
Uh-huh.
Filipino
So, but these were
is
spoken in
sorry,
Spain. But these were spoken in Spain in the 1800s. But these were spoken in Spain,
exactly.
or they were uniquely emerging only in the Philippines. Just a little bit back. Can you give us an example? Like, what are the expressions or words, or I don't know, distinct pronunciation of certain words, or parang pre-evolution, etymological, whatever. If you can give us a little bit about that, just some examples. Can you give us? I'm curious, actually. That's interesting.
Well, for example, my grandfather used to pepper everything with coño.
Uh-huh.
And
Right. But coño is stupid, right? Like in Spanish or something like that. Does it mean coño?
well, literally, coño means the female sex organ.
Oh, okay.
So
It's even worse than I thought. Okay.
things like that, there are some expressions that are really old fashioned and
Right, right.
eh,
Is
gamit
there a more
dito.
politically correct example? Like I was not ready for that. Sorry. Is there something more politically correct? I mean, I know what you're saying, because what you're saying is like those in Montreal, right? Quebec French, and then they go to Paris and like you have Parisian friends who say, "What's that?" Like that's not French, right? Or like so because like one French friend told me like people in Quebec they speak a French that was spoken, I don't know, in the court of Louis, I don't know, the 15th or 17th or something like that, right? So I kind of understand what you're saying, amigo. Yeah. Can you tell us a little bit like
What's funny?
this is interesting, yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say what's funny are maybe the false friends, the words that we think are Spanish, but are not. My mom always
Ah,
likes
right,
to
interesting. Yes.
like when she was a young student here in Spain, she because of the weather was so cold, she and her cousins, my titas, they went to a pharmacy. They were looking for cebo de macho, and in Philippines that's
Right,
an ointment for
right, right.
dry skin. So they asked Se
For the
vende cebo
macho,
de
the
macho.
macho. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Then the pharmacist looked at them, these young girls, asking for what literally translates to the fat of a macho,
Yeah,
a
exactly.
masculine guy.
Masculado man. Yeah.
Uh, Funny things like that. Or when my mom was
Right.
homesick, she went to a bakery and asked if they sold mamones.
Right.
And mamon here means, breasts. So things like
Right.
that. Funny,
That's a very
funny.
yeah, it could be actually almost a short story, no? You can make a short story about loss, like loss in translation al Espanol, right? Literally, right?
Exactly.
That made sense in the Philippines. So, okay, so how does it feel to speak a dead language? I mean, like, I don't know how to put it, right? Speaking Spanish that is, no longer as much in circulation. Forget about the Philippines, not even in Spanish speaking, Hispania, other Spanish speaking countries.
Well, I don't consider myself speaking anymore a dead language because I'm learning
Yeah.
the new term
The modern
expressions here in
contemporary Spanish, yeah.
exactly. And also my parents, they were educated in Spain, so they also started already
You see what?
using
Yeah.
expressions, not like my grandparents, talagang frozen in time yung their Spanish.
Right. And okay, again, I don't want to be mean, but we know that in English, for instance, we have some common errors, right? For instance, we have big problems with prepositions, when for and of, and not to mention subject verb agreements, like you see certain things that are uniquely Filipino, right? For the interest of being nice, let's just call it Filipino English, right? Sometimes. Although sometimes we have legitly Filipino English terms, right? That are not, like the word salvage, right? Has totally different meaning in the Philippines than in less common understanding of it in other English speaking countries, or Anglophone countries. Do we have similar things? I know that, for lack of a better term, the more elite in the Philippines are the last vestiges of, Hispania Hablantes people. But do we have those kind of common errors, grammatical errors, or etc., aside from vocabulary and archaic words that are being used but no longer relevant in contemporary Spain and other Spanish-speaking countries? Do we have
Yes,
like
a common word is the word siguro. In the Philippines, siguro
right.
means kind of sure, but here seguro means sure.
Right. That's a big difference.
Or archaic things like our word for toilet, cubeta,
Cubeta, yeah.
actually here means bucket. So maybe in Spanish colonial times in the
You did it in the
Philippines,
bucket.
do it in a bucket.
Yeah. That's
So
right. Interesting, very interesting. So is the Spanish that is spoken among Hispania Hablantes in the Philippines, is it like, I don't know how to put it, like Ateneo UST kind of Spanish? I mean, like, or does it have a more like Catalan slant? Like, what's going on there? I'm really curious about it. So I mean, I didn't even bother. I wasn't thinking about it, pero napaisip ako ngayon. Does it have a certain slant and sociological, institutional roots?
yes, the Spanish in the Philippines is very similar to Andalusian Spanish.
Right. Interesting.
Most of the Spaniards that came to the Philippines came from Andalusia, which at the time was really the poorer region of Spain.
Right.
And then, like, in terms of commonalities, like in Andalusia, they like to contract things, which we do also in the Spanish in the Philippines. Things like that, but yeah, very Andalusian and also very South American because of the influence of Mexico.
Exactly, Mexico. Yeah. The Rojases, right, have a Mexican background, Nova España background. I think based on the discussion yesterday with Jorge, the other day we were discussing these things. No, yeah. So yeah, correction. Apparently, I mean, I don't think incorrect to say a lot of them came from Basque, because if 30 to 35% of Spanish Filipinos came from Basque, and Basque is just barely 5% of Spain population, that's a huge overrepresentation, right? So clearly there were a lot of Basque here. So my sense is Ayala, Foronda, my middle name, they have more Basque roots. But correct, it looks like a lot of the Spanish who came here actually came from southern Spain, which used to be called Al-Andalus, right? During the Moorish occupation, during the Islamic Empire era. And probably for me, that also explains the anti-Muslim prejudice that they brought here, because I think the bitterness towards Muslims, I mean, they literally called all Muslims here Moro, right? So
Mhm.
I just always try to, why is it the intensity such a high level of intensity? That probably is not the case in Latin American countries, right? So having figured out that probably is because a lot of them came from Al-Andalus or Andalusia, no, and there's a lot of bitterness about their history of being subjugated by Muslims, etc. So maybe that's the context. But obviously, have you visited Seville recently? I mean, obviously, Seville is the crown jewel of Al-Andalus and the most, I mean, it's a brilliant place, right?
Yeah, the last time I was in Seville was before COVID, no, when my entire family came here, 2019.
Right,
Yeah, we took a trip to Sevilla, and yeah, indeed, Sevilla is beautiful. There's also lots of Filipinos in Andalusia.
right.
Beautiful place to visit. Mhm.
And of course,
Besides Seville,
yeah.
go ahead.
No. I mean, the
Go
context
ahead.
of course, we were in Calle de Seville, di ba? Sevilla, when we were in Madrid, which for me is one of the, I mean, the Alcaraz and Calle de Sevilla, these are the most beautiful, I think, places in Madrid format, is based on what I know. So that's where that was the context of our discussion. Of course, I was also looking at the etymology of Alcaraz. It comes from the Arabic word al-Qasr, right? Which means fortress, or actually it means a castle, right? Because I'm a little bit familiar with Arabic too. So it's Al-Qasr, which became Al-Karaz. So it's just fantastic. A lot of Spanish words, when I scratch it, it's like, that sounds Arabic, right? And I check it. Oh, it went from Al-Qasr. Sorry, very thick yung Arabic accent, Al-Qasr, right? To Al-Karaz, right? Like, although I think you're the second person who pointed out my Spanish as an Italian accent to it or something like that. I don't know why I can't control it. I almost said Instituto Cervantes. Like I almost got myself killed, right? Like I had to control myself. Instituto Cervantes. Don't say Instituto Cervantes. You say that, you're dead, man. Like, you're not gonna
Dude, I
get
think you
hired.
were Italian in your past life. You were a mafia
Yeah,
boss
I
in your
know,
past
man.
life.
Forget about my past life. Just look at my fashion sense, right? It's as Siciliano as you can get, right? It's so gangster, right? Yeah, I don't know. There's always this Spanish. I always tend to bring in some Italian things. I have to really control myself, like say it in a Spanish way. Okay? That's why you notice if I speak Spanish, I kind of like slow it down intention so I can control. Because if I let it go, it goes in an Italian direction, right? All right.
Yeah, I think kasi you talk with
I mean,
Jorge, there were moments na, uy, medyo Italian yung
and of course, with my fashion sense and all, di ba? I actually, in Barcelona, before I got back, because last year, actually, there was still rule now you have to still do PCR test before you get back. No, so I got lost. Somewhere in Barcelona, it's like 6 a.m., whatever, right? I don't know where in the world, hole in the wall kind of place that clinic was, right? And so I asked someone, and then surprising, or maybe not surprised, the Spanish guy asked me if I were Italian, right? Or something, and he was wondering why should I take PCR test, go back to Italy. I said, no, let's see some Filipinos. So after that, I said, okay, there is a problem here. I think I'm in denial. I have to really be conscious about how I speak Espanol. But what I love about Spain, whether it's in Ibiza, whether it's in Barcelona, whether it's Madrid, is that you can get away with a lot of Spanglish, right? In ways that you can never get away in France, right? You're gonna get murdered. Bad things are gonna happen to you. I think that's one reason why my bag coming from Paris to Barcelona, Ibiza got lost or something like that. And I think it had to do with my, not delivering my French in the way I used to, right? So I'm a bit bitter about that experience, to be honest. And then you come to Spain, man, you can get away with it. I mean, literally, I go Spanglish, they respond to me totally in Spanish, right? And at one time, I think there was one lady in Barcelona who kind of like got irritated. It's like, so what do you want to really speak? Do you want to go English or gonna Spanish? I said, I prefer English. But usually get away with it. Like they totally respond to you fully in Spanish. And I felt so good about that. It's like, oh, that's so good. Like, because psychology is very important, right? In terms of feeling at home and bothering to learn the language. I think because of some of my experiences with the French. I mean, French are fantastic people, I had great. But some of the things I saw with them, I think that discouraged me from going more with my French. But anyway, it's not about me, it's about you and in Spain. But I'm just telling you, it's always something special when you go to Madrid, right? Because or Spain in general, because it's the one Western capital that feels strangely familiar, right? Strangely familiar beyond just nostalgia, right? I mean, United States is a global kind of culture and empire, right? So if you feel at home in California, because literally all our Filipinos and Mexicans there, that's understandable. But to feel at home in a European capital the way a lot of us Filipinos do, or people like me at least do, who are, yeah, that was special. And I'm very glad that you confirmed a lot of my impressions, positive impression of Spain. So yeah, you were telling me like you sense that too, because you're somehow francophone too, and I'm sure you have visited Italy a lot and other major capitals in Europe. Of course, you would say naturally London is easier for us because we're Anglophone or Americanophone, right? But iba in Madrid, no? I mean, can you tell me about your impression of Spain as you became more regular resident there, or legal ka naman, di ba? Legit ka naman, all right? Like, it's like about to be citizen kind of resident, right?
Correct, correct. Well, addressing your first point, no, yes, the Spaniards are very forgiving with
Yeah,
with Spanish. You know, if you talk to them in Spanish, they already appreciate the effort. If you lapse into English, no problem. They'll understand enough.
yeah,
Unlike in France, no, parang they want you to really effort to speak in
yeah,
French. But here, because Madrid is very cosmopolitan. It's such a melting pot. There are people
right.
from all around the world. Well, so is Paris. But dito, the attitude is maraming tourists,
Yeah.
fine, they don't speak English, no hay problema.
Yeah, I mean, I
They'll
noticed.
find a way.
Yeah, sorry, you just respond to one. No, I just want to say, like in Madrid, I noticed 50 shades of, I'm sorry, 50 shades of brown. Let's just put it that way, right? Like off whites like me, chinitos like you, and then you know what I'm saying? Like, and you can go on like Peruviano, and like I really love that. Of course, not as many as folks from the African continent as in, let's say, Paris, right? You will see a lot of former French colony folks there. I mean, I hope I'm being politically correct here. I didn't see as much, but I really saw 50 shades of brown, right? Chinitos, off-whites, North Africa, like I said, Lebanese, whatever. So it was really amazing. It's like, wow, like brown power. I really felt it. And Espanols are not very light-skinned people, right? And it's like, so I mean, compared to, I don't know, Nordic people, wala ka masyadong makitang gingers, right? I'm so politically incorrect. I'm so sorry. You get what I'm saying, right? Yeah, you tell me,
You're
bro.
absolutely right.
I'm
On
sorry. I
the
hope
40
I'm not
shades.
wala mag-stand-up comedy na lang ako. Yeah.
But because of their former colonies, no, the
Exact.
Latin Americans, they're all
Exact.
here, all the different colonies. So they're all brown, and then they also have a lot of Moroccans here, and then they have Spinoys who are medyo chinito. So halo-halo, really based on history, no.
Yeah.
But as you're saying, the natural feeling of affinity when a Filipino comes to Spain that I don't feel when I go to France. I don't feel it in other European
No offense
countries.
to
But
them.
really,
No offense to them. Yeah.
no offense,
Yeah. We
offense,
just
of
being
course.
honest. Yeah. Yeah.
But really, there is just so much in common between us and the Españoles. Besides the common history,
Correct.
Richard, you and I were talking about, we observed how napaka-chill na mga Espanyol. Parang Pilipino, medyo
Too
laid
chill.
back.
Too chill.
Pinoy
Too
sa
chill. Yeah.
di ba?
Masyado silang chill, like, man, dude, I mean, like, let's go. Like, I went to Apple, di ba, to get something. I had to really say, mi viaje, like, alas 3, like, I had to say it, Sí, sí. You know what I'm saying? Like, they had to chill me down. Like, I have to go. Let's go. You know what I'm saying? Tranquilo, tranquilo. I mean, I love them. They're amazing people, yeah.
And it's exactly that chillness of the Spaniards that make this the perfect place to retire. That's why
Yeah.
all the Americans, they want to retire here because it's such a chill country
Yeah.
with chill people.
Beautiful
No
beaches, Malaga, all those areas. Of course, Gibraltar is already British. Yeah, amazing. No, yeah, it's really special, isn't it? Yeah. What else you want to say? No, I'm sorry, I'm cutting you kasi natatawa talaga. It's a good
no,
sign
no,
I caught you. It means like you're keeping me you're getting me worked up in a good way. Um.
no.
So
In Spain,
yeah.
it's such a wonderful country. Sorry, I was saying it's a wonderful country in the sense that it is so varied, you know, from the north to the south. You see everything. You have mountains, ranges, you have deserts, you have
Right.
plains, you have forests, beautiful beaches. So
Yeah.
you find everything in
You're
Spain.
right. You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. I mean, if you want to get a little bit more of an Atlantic European sense, go to San Sebastian, right? The Basque region,
Right.
etc., and Bilbao, gorgeous, right? I wanted to go actually, but it's winter. I'm not sure it's the best time. Maybe next time, bro. Kailangan kita, no? By the way, all could I should have put the know, but I said I'll just announce it na lang open. You know, I thank you so much, bro, for doing my production and all of that videos and all of that. So just to be out na baka mga to say Darren hindi nagbibigay acknowledgement. No, I mean I said maybe next time let's go together so you can do no, but north and then you can go south. Of course,
Actually, paying you, bro, for the blogging 101
yeah,
lessons.
I meant yeah.
Thought
I should have charged executive course rates, right? So I'm just saying that was an internship, right? It's like no, but and of course you have Malaga, you have Ibiza. I mean, so much is going on with Spain. You're absolutely right. But generally, Spain is a bit drier and more rugged, right? Than more Europe, more other Europe. I mean, you go to rural Alemania, right? Like it's super green and beautiful, even in winter, right? While in Spain, you'll find a lot of desert and the kind of Don Quixote looking places. So I think that made the Spanish people perfectly suited to, I don't know, conquer Americas, right? Especially Mexico and those more rugged, dry places. No, I'm just paying attention to these things. No, I mean, imagine you're a Espanol man, you end up in a desertish area. How can? Anyway, what else have you noticed with Spain that really has attracted you, made you felt really, really at home?
Well, it's the kindness of the people, really.
Mm,
Only here in Spain, you know, you see someone in the street, you bump into someone in the street, you make eye contact, they
right.
say, Buenos dias, ¿qué
Yeah.
tal? If you're leaving the supermarket, you know, they'll actually say hasta luego, goodbye. I mean, it's generally kind, courteous people,
Yeah.
very friendly. I've never felt any racism here, or
Exactly. The
felt my
racism is that's really one thing like I'm very sensitive about those things. Like, is there like an anti-Asian racism, or in my case, because I could look more Eastern Mediterranean or something? Like, is no, I didn't feel that. I really didn't. Not that I felt that necessarily elsewhere, right? I'm not gonna talk about Midwest US. It's like some redneck guy in the airport. I'm not gonna talk about those people, but yeah, I noticed also. I was like always trying to observe those macro signals, right? And that's very important. I watch them. The reason why is because I spent some time in Japan, right? And one of the things I learned in Japan is you watch how much they bow to you. So if they just bow to you like that, that means you're irrelevant person. But if you really go down by, oh, I must say that means you're important guy. So every year I go back, I say, okay, a little bit lower. Like I'm a more important guy this year. You know what I'm saying? So because of Japan, I became very, very sensitive to micro signals, no? Yung mga little things here and there. And I noticed with Spain, people of different color background, talk to them, different levels of fluency, etc. It's more or less same yung response. Kasi, di ba, syempre, you walk in, let's say, to an Apple shop, right? Very diverse crowd, right? Could be Americans being there, could be folks from developing countries. But I saw how they interact with them. The salespeople, super nice, super nice. The security guards will come to you. Oh, diba, I told you it's there. I really like that. I really like that. So I really pay attention to that. It's the anthropologist, let's say, in me, right? Which pays very close attention to those micro signals. I don't show it. I rarely talk about it, but deep inside, I'm really sensitive about those things. I look here, I look there. Because if it's warmth alone, I would say Italy is a very warm country too, right? I mean, I could get away with a lot of like Spanish, Italian, whatever hodgepodge I make, and then I still get a good response, no, and good descuento, whatever. And I just like, que precio, I extend it a little bit. I get the good discounts. I love it. I love that thing about Italy. But you're right. The thing with Spain is you really see they're genuinely politically correct, right? It's not like forced political correct. I really like that about them. It's not. I see a lot of sincerity and authenticity, etc. That I really appreciate. What else it makes you like? By the way, like speaking of Spanish language, right? So you had some, of course, exposure. You were drenched a bit in the language, well, the Filipino version of language. But I know most of the Filipinos who go there to really learn the language, they go to Salamanca, right? Uh, what's going on there? Because I met some OFW friends of ours, oh well, overseas Filipino, not as you know, who some of them were based in Emirat, you know, in Khalij, Middle East region, and then you know some of them out of passion and other reasons go to España and they're studying. And I heard a lot of great things about Salamanca. They were telling me, if Richard, you really want to go all in El Profesional style, you go in there. So you take out your Italian accent and really get this. Go to Salamanca. Have you done the Salamanca one too? I mean, what's going on there?
Well, Salamanca, or the University of Salamanca, is the oldest university in Spain. I think it's also the second oldest in
Oh
Europe,
wow!
and it's known for the teaching of Spanish. So I took a
Sorry,
summer course in
how old is
Salamanca.
the University of Salamanca? Yeah, I'm wondering how old it is.
Yeah, check how old it is. And my
12,
sister too went
18.
to Salamanca.
Wow,
to take
12, 18, 800 years.
18.
Wow, this is incredible.
Imagine.
Yeah. So your sister also studied there?
My sister studied there, and it's a funny story. My sister will kill me for telling this on air, but
Sorry,
she went here to
yeah.
like my parents. We have this sort of tradition in the family that
Right.
girls go to school to study, and she went here with her cousins, or my cousins. And after 2 or 3 years in Madrid, it was time to go back to Manila. My
Right.
sister Susie panicked, and she says, "Oh my gosh, I'm going back to Manila. I don't speak Spanish yet." So she told cousins, "Go back to Manila pa. I still have something to do." She enrolled herself in Salamanca, took an extensive course, and pam, 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 in 3 months, she was speaking perfect Spanish already.
Wow.
Spanish actually even good enough that she came back to UP. She taught Spanish in
Wow.
UP.
So academic level.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Wow. That's very
So yeah, a lot of people go to Salamanca to learn Spanish. My niece also took
Right.
a course in Salamanca to learn Spanish. So I really suggest it. When you go to Salamanca, it's a university town.
Right.
There are students from all over the world wanting to learn Spanish. So yeah, that is the place to go if you want to have an intensive course.
Have you also tried Salamanca? Have you also done some courses there or plan to go there or something? What's going on there?
Yeah, in 2009, I took a summer course in Salamanca. Just 2.5 months of intensive Spanish.
Right.
It was a very
Really
experience.
Can you tell us a little bit about, I mean, for some of our kametas who may be interested, I mean, malay nyo, di ba? Biglang, nagjowa kayo ng foreigner, tapos, just kidding. Malay nyo, nanalo kayo ng, I'm gonna be in trouble again. Malay nyo, di ba? Biglang may, bonus from Magellan Junior, may, scholarship, let's go Salamanca. Kamusta naman? How was it? Like, tell.
When in Salamanca, you can just online and look for a course at the University of Salamanca. But I have a better suggestion. In fact, this was mentioned by Jorge yesterday. It's the Auxiliares de Conversación program, or the program of the Spanish Ministry of Culture and Education, bringing in Filipinos to come to Spain to teach English. And while they're here for 2 or 3 years teaching English, after work, they can learn Spanish. Now, this is a wonderful program.
Oh, nice. Yeah. Back and forth.
Yeah.
I like it. So they get free English from us. We get free Spanish from them. Not a bad deal.
Not a bad deal. And this program is only open. Get this. It's only open to citizens of the United States, Britain, Ireland, Australia, Canada, the Anglophone countries, and surprisingly, the Philippines. So kung medyo Inglesera ka sa Manila, and you're confident.
Yung mga konyo dyan.